Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 9, and the new title, The Rise of Skywalker. What is the meaning? So today I'm going to talk about what the three prominent theories for the meaning are, and then what my theory on what Rise of the Skywalker means, which doesn't match any of the prominent theories. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so first, what are the three prominent theories? Well, they match Luke, Rey, and Kylo. The question is Rise of the Skywalker. What do they mean by Skywalker, right? So who is that in the films? And most of the prominent theories are saying this is one of these three characters. It's Luke, it's Rey, it's Kylo, right? Now, we'll take them one by one, all right? Can it be Luke Skywalker? Could it be Rise of the Skywalker, meaning Rise of Luke Skywalker, right? Well, I think that's an absolute dead no, hard no. And the reason why is specifically Luke is dead, right? He has passed. So it is my opinion that when he vaporously disappeared after exhausting himself, that he was the first Jedi to pass into Force Ghost state without actually having a physical death, right? I think he chose to die, and for Jedis, that means simply, going into the spirit realm, right? Like becoming, I would say, one with the Force, becoming like, the energy of the universe, and simply going into a spiritual state, right? Which I'm not sure that Star Wars actually acknowledges a spiritual state, but it's Force Ghosts. I mean, come on, that's pretty spiritual, right? So now I know a lot of people would argue, well, that's just energy, right? But I think that's a projection. Personally, I think that the Force does have a spiritual element to it. And so I think Luke Skywalker was the first to go into the Force Ghost state without a physical death, right? He literally just kind of faded into non-existence, right? So to have him rise from the dead in the in the ninth movie, it doesn't match anything that's ever been in Star Wars, and it's a hard retcon, right? So retroactive contradiction, right? A retcon means retroactive contradiction, right? And in my opinion, there will be absolutely no retroactive contradictions in this movie. You're not going to get that. Now, why do I think that? Well, one, J.J. Abrams is an incredibly smart filmmaker. So was George Lucas, right? George Lucas, back in the prequel films, right? Midichlorians was in episode 1, and then it was not mentioned again in episode 2 or 3, right? They learned from people saying, oh, I don't like that. Midichlorians is a terrible idea, right? George Lucas, and I think J.J. Abrams is actually, in some ways, he is more of a modern storyteller. And one thing modern storytellers do is they listen to the feedback that comes from the audience generally. And I just don't think there's going to be any retroactive contradictions in this movie. They're not going to pretend that any part of episode 8 didn't happen, right? The other thing I think that is really interesting about episode 8, you can argue whether it was a good or bad movie. What's not arguable is it did split the audience, right? It sundered the community, and that is not arguable. That's a fact, right? And so, because there's just been so much conflict within the community itself, right? And verbal, and it's been bad. But the thing is, there's too much on the line. I think episodes 7 and 8, everything that happened in 8 is going to stand. This isn't going to be like Highlander 2, where Highlander 3 picks up and forgets that episode 2 exists, and forgets that Highlander. It's not going to be like Highlander 3, where they just don't even acknowledge that Highlander 2 happened, right? It's not going to be like that. There's too much on the line. There are billions of dollars on the line, right? And there's movie going that will affect generations to come, right? It's too much, right? So to me, Luke being dead, there's absolutely no possibility he can be Rise of the Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is not going to rise from the dead. He's going to be a Force ghost. There's context for that. There's a framework for that. There's tradition for that, right? And I don't think there's any way in Star Wars they're going to break that, okay? Can it be Rey, right? That's a good question. Is the Skywalker we're talking about Rey? And the way they would do that is they would just, they would do this thing where they say, oh, you know, we said in episode 8 that you were the daughter of nobody, and now we find you are the daughter of Luke Skywalker. That is absolutely not going to happen. And the reason why is, again, J.J. Abrams is a very good, powerful, smart, you know, motivated, engaged storyteller. And that is and making Rey Skywalker is absolutely lazy, bad storytelling. And I just don't think there's any possibility that J.J. Abrams will do it, right? And the reason why is there's a whole bunch of questions, right? If Rey is a Skywalker, people got upset because they didn't feel that Luke Skywalker was respected in episode 8 right now. By the way, I loved episode 8. I was fully on board. I really, really liked episode 8 a lot. There were very few things in that movie I didn't like. So I'm team episode 8, right? I'm team Last Jedi. I loved it. But there were a lot of people who were like, you know, Luke Skywalker wasn't respected, right? If you go to Rey Skywalker, that does not work, right? And the reason why is the immediate question becomes, why would Luke Skywalker abandon Rey for 30 years, right? Like, that's just not, doesn't make any sense, right? And it makes Luke Skywalker to look worse than he already looks from episode 8, which I think he looked great. I don't have any problem with that. But there were people like, oh, he wouldn't drink, you know, cow milk. I don't understand that, but it's strange. But the reality is, Luke's, you know, Rey you know, deadbeat dad is not a good look on a Jedi, right? Like, you know, you don't walk away from your kids for 30 years. There's no way that Luke Skywalker can be the father of Rey. It's terrible. It takes a much beloved character and makes him unlovable, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So it is my contention that Rey Skywalker absolutely cannot be, right? Like, Rey cannot be a Skywalker because it makes Luke Skywalker look terrible, right? And I don't think there's any way they're going to do that with the legacy of Star Wars. Kylo Ren. Let's talk about Kylo Ren as Kylo Skywalker. Absolutely does not make any sense. Here's why. Kylo Skywalker is not a Skywalker from any perspective, okay? So let's get into it. All right. 1, he's Han Solo's son, okay? There's no connection to Skywalker there, okay? Leia Organa is not Leia Skywalker. She has never acknowledged that for herself, okay? So essentially, Darth Vader, Leia's father, and Luke's father, he was a horrible, horrible father, right? And Leia, right, she absolutely cannot identify as a Skywalker because, 1, she had a absolutely horrific relationship with Anakin Skywalker. She never ever, like, the only time they ever had any time together, Darth Vader was involved in literally torturing her. Like, terrible, right? They had no time where they dealt with each other in any way that was ever anything but incredibly conflictory, right? In conflict, right? Now, she did have, but see, here's the thing. Luke had no father, right? And he was raised by Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, right? And they served as parents for him, and they were okay. They weren't great parents. Like, Luke was not really, they were good parents. They served him well. They provided for him, and that is not a small thing. It's more than Darth Vader did for Luke, right? Okay, but then here's the issue, right? So you have this situation where you're dealing with Luke as, so Luke doesn't have a father, and then Luke has some time where he's able to build a relationship with Darth Vader. Not only did Leia never have that time, right, which means that she would have absolutely no interest in calling herself ever, or even acknowledging herself as Leia Skywalker, but Leia did have a father, right? And that father cannot be forgotten. And Leia carries his name. She is known as Leia Organa. Her father is Bail Organa, right? And he was an incredible father. He taught her to be a diplomat. He loved her. He cared for her. and he served as a major foundation in her life and made her a better person, right? So I don't think Star Wars can throw away the legacy of Bail Organa, right? He's a major character in the story, and Leia Organa is a central character in the story, and I feel like it's disrespectful to adoptive parents to say, we're going to throw away all the work you did to attach a name to this character who never, ever attached it to herself, right? That would be insane. So basically, you can't, so there's no connection to Skywalker for Kylo Ren through Han Solo, and there is no connection to Skywalker from Leia Organa, right? I feel like it's really important that everyone remembers Leia's real name, Leia Organa, and her real parentage, Bail Organa, right? That's important, right? And to throw that away for the deadbeat dad, material of Darth Vader would be outrageous. It would be a terrible story idea. And just, that's another thing. Star Wars has political, cultural, and social impact, right? Like, things that are said in the film reflect on our society. And I just don't think that Star Wars would be that dismissive to adoptive parenting, right? It's a terrible, terrible idea. So who is Rise of the Skywalker? Here's my prediction. Luke Skywalker, in the 30 years between Episode 6 and Episode 7, had a son and raised that son, right? And we never saw any of that because it happened in that 30-year period between Episode 6 and Episode 7. So it is my opinion that Rise of the Skywalker refers to Luke Skywalker's son, which was born in the 30 years between Episode 6 and Episode 7, and that Luke did raise that son, essentially, right? And it was in the period where he went missing, right? It was in the period where he went missing, right? So we do know that he trained Kylo Ren, right? But at some point, again, he had to disappear, and as the First Order was rising, I think there'll be a son of Luke Skywalker, and that the Rise of Skywalker refers to the son of Luke Skywalker born during his period of exile, right? And we don't know who his mother is. That's my take. I would love to hear your opinion. Who do you think Rise of the Skywalker refers to? I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.